everybody. It's me, Delores, the pastor's daughter. Y'all, I don't know how long I'm gonna be able to go tonight. Okay, so we're just gonna get into this writing session. Not too much to talk about, other than just to let you know where I am in my process. I'm doing another round of edits, and there are some additions and some subtractions that I need to make to the book. So I'm going to be working on that. And let me know in the chat. Hold on. Let me know in the chat, what are you working on? Okay. What are you creating? I'm going to put please share. So I am, like I said, going through another round of edits, and this book is called Provoke to Purpose. And y'all, I low-key think I want to change it to from Provoke to Purpose. I think I want to, but I'm not 100% sure, because the first book is called Provoke, right? You guys know that already. Let me go ahead and show you the first book. So the first book is Provoked, right? And then this next book is called Provoked to Purpose. And so I was thinking earlier today, I was like, I wonder if I should change it to From Provoked to Purpose. Y'all let me know in the chat, like, what do you think? What do you think about that change? So like I said, my premise for my logic for thinking of it this way is because I'm already doing Provoked, right? Provoked, we've done that. This is the sequel to Provoke that I'm working on now. So I'm wondering if I should do it from Provoke to Purpose or just Provoke to Purpose. I don't know. Y'all let me know in the chat what you think. And I'll just go with the majority on this one. So let me put it in the chat. Help me subtitle. Help me subtitle the book. Okay. So we're going to go with either, let me see. Actually, not subtitle. Wait a minute. That's a correction. Okay, hold on, y'all. Because I'm putting it in the chat as I'm talking about it. Okay, correction. Help me title the book. So it's going to be either Provoked to Purpose or From, right? Because that makes a difference. I know it probably seems minor, but if you're a writer, like, it matters. Okay, so okay. Whoop. Are my fingers gonna cooperate tonight, y'all? I don't know. We're gonna see. Okay. So y'all help me, okay? Help me title the book Provoke to Purpose or From Provoke to Purpose, okay? So, and also in the chat, let me know what you're working on. Let me know what you're creating. I want to send you some good positive energy. We can help hold each other accountable. And how I view these sessions, like, I'm writing, you guys are creating something as well, or you're on the job, or you're doing whatever you do. So it's almost like we're just we're all just working together, we're all in our separate places, but in here we're all together. Okay. So, and sometimes that, provides a good bit of encouragement to help you keep on going, and just to know that you're not the only one up late. Okay. Putting in that time, because we're dedicated, right? So like I said, this is what I'm working on today. And y'all, okay, so I want you guys to listen in. I've been taking this class. Well, it's a boot camp, right? It's a writer's boot camp, and it's teaching you how to write a proposal and how to get a book deal and all that good stuff. Well, today's class was talking about traditional publishing versus self-publishing, and kind of like going over the pros and cons of each. So I know, that's going to be some really good information for everybody, on this stream, or whoever is thinking about writing and thinking about whether they want to try to traditionally get published through an agent and getting a book deal or whatever, or whether it's best for you to do the indie publishing, so individual publishing. So y'all let me know what you think about this. And like I said, I'm not sure how long we're going to be able to go tonight because I'm really tired and I got to get up super early in the morning. And I got to look alive. Okay. I got a meeting in the morning. So I don't think I'm going to stay up too late. And this video is actually an hour and 50 something minutes long. We may not get through all of it, but I think that it'll be some really good information if you're just listening in on it. And if you have someone who's been thinking about writing a book, then, tell them to go ahead and tune into this live stream, and we're going to listen to it. I'm not going to put it on the screen, but we're just going to listen to it so that we can get all that good info. Okay. So I am going to get to work and I'm going to start the video now.
So here we go. So day 2 is upon us. And what we're going to talk about first is traditional versus self-publishing.
And y'all let me know in the chat if you can hear that.
We know a lot about, and we also know that a lot of people need information about it. So Reed runs a traditional publisher. The publishers that I've worked for in the past, like Penguin or Hyperion or HarperCollins, they're traditional publishers. And long story short, the traditional publishers used to be the only option, or there were very few other options. And so most people think that that's where they want to start. But these days, the market has changed a lot. And actually, traditional publishing is not necessarily the best starting point for most people. So we're going to talk to you both about traditional and self-publishing. So this is the steps you would need to take with traditional publishing. And Reed, obviously interrupt me at any time.
No problem.
So the first thing that you'll need to do if you're writing nonfiction is create a book proposal. And in today's poll here in the VIP room, we asked you what's the hardest thing that you're facing right now with your book journey. And an overwhelming majority of you said how to write a book proposal, find an agent or publisher. The proposal is not a full manuscript. It's kind of like the business plan for your book. And it is what every publisher is going to want if you're writing nonfiction. So ideally, this would be if you're writing a self-help book, if you're writing a biography or a cookbook, you're going to put together this proposal, which has 5 very clear industry standard parts to it. And we're going to be talking to the VIPs about that a little bit more later in the week. But it's a very unique format, and it's something you need to do per industry norms. So you need to research it, whether you're going to learn about it from us on Thursday or not.
Yeah, it's a big emphasis of our memberships that we have. So we have contests. So the VIPs here get a contest, but in our memberships we have 2 every year. And so we have a whole bunch of information about the book proposal. We take you step by step, line by line through it. And so we know that it's how important it is to get your book to a traditional publisher or agent, we should say as well, because the book proposal is how you get an agent as well. It's exactly the same thing. In fact, the agents usually will help you make the book proposal before they bring it out to the publisher themselves. So
that's right. Yes. So that book proposal is for you if you're writing nonfiction. If you are writing a novel, if you're writing a children's book, etc., you do need to provide entire manuscript. And the reason for this is that we can't know as an editor or an agent whether the book's good unless we've read the entire book, because oftentimes the ending of a novel is everything about the novel. It has to be really powerful and hold up in the face of everything else that we have learned over the course of the book. And so if we don't get that full manuscript, we can't really know for sure that the book's going to sell, right? So it's very, very important to do the full manuscript, but it does does put an extra burden on you. So if you are here in the VIP room and you have the contest that you want to enter, you will, and you're writing fiction, you will need to submit the full manuscript. So you got your work cut out for you. Let me put it that way. You got to write the whole thing in the next 6 months. It's totally doable. Some of you already have it underway, but that is the truth about it. But you'll write this proposal or this manuscript. The second thing you'll do is you'll need to, in most cases, especially for the big publishing houses, find an agent. So a literary agent is your representative. They know the editors at all the houses, and the editors know and trust them. So you can imagine how many piles of manuscripts and book proposals an editor would have to go through if there were no one pre-vetting those submissions for them. And in fact, most houses still, they say all over their website, we don't accept submissions directly from authors. They still get piles of mail, which they do nothing with. And the reason for that is that the publishers have gotten into unfortunate problems with authors who think that their book idea has stolen. What those authors don't know, so what they'll send in, let's say, a book proposal directly to the publisher, and then 3 months later, a book comes out on the same topic. And they will believe that they somehow got scooped, that their idea had been stolen from that book proposal they sent in. And we live in a fairly litigious society here, especially in the US. And so it just caused a heavy burden for the publishers. What the publishers know is that, and you'll find out in just a minute, it takes way longer than 3 months to publish a book. So that book was in the pipeline way before that book proposal showed up, but the author doesn't know that. So it just got the publishers into more litigation, more lawyers than they wanted to be involved in. And it also wasted a lot of time because so many people would submit a book proposal they thought was good and complete, but they hadn't done this kind of education for themselves, or they hadn't been part of our membership or whatever it might be. They did not know what they did not know. And so there's a lot of time wasted going through book proposals and manuscripts that aren't really cooked yet. They're not really ready to be submitted. So that's why publishers, the big houses, have transitioned over the course of the last 25 years, in most cases exclusively, to looking at proposals and other submissions via agents. So you can look up literary agents. You can Google it, find literary agents. There is a website we'll talk to you about later today called publishersmarketplace.com that has a listing of all the literary agents. But what you'll need to do is research agents who submit books in your genre. You'll see how every day we're teaching you builds on the day before. Obviously, you need to know your genre. You need to then research who is out there selling books in your genre, because that's what literary agents do. They sell books. And you want to then start researching them and figure out, whether they're the right person for your book, what their submissions guidelines are, and start sending whatever materials they request to them so they can consider your book. Now, that's a whole other ball game. We will be talking about that with the VIPs a little later this week, but it is something you can educate yourself on in multiple different ways. I've got a chapter on it in my book. We talk about it ad nauseum in our membership. You can also just find a lot about it on the web, but that is the process. Now, I will say there are smaller publishers that may still accept submissions directly from authors. They call these unsolicited submissions, meaning no one called you and solicited whether they could send it to you. You are allowed to send that book proposal or manuscript to those smaller houses. Now, how do you know which houses do and don't accept direct from authors? Well, you go to their website, and every single publisher will have a submissions guidelines link on their website, and they will lay it all out for you. So smaller publishers might be more niche in your topic. So health publishers or Buddhist publishers or whatever the topic is that you're working on, you might be able to find smaller houses that still do accept submissions directly from authors. Fabulous. Send them there. We call those like independent houses, indie houses. But the bigger houses definitely are going to require you to find an agent.
And I see in the chat, people are saying, do you need an agent for the contest at Hay House? No, you don't. That's one of the great things about the contest is you get to submit directly to us, and that's the only time. Hay House only accepts book proposals from agents, except through our membership and our boot camp contests. And people are asking about the membership. We're going to tell you all about it on Friday. We'll tell you the details, but you'll hear us mention it throughout these days because it's like a great resource for you to continue in this process. But we'll tell you about that another later on. But the other thing is that the same with publishers have rules, so do the agents. So be sure to look at their submission guidelines and be sure to follow them. So don't, just because you have things set up a certain way, like some of them just say, send me a query letter. So send that and don't send the whole proposal. Some say, send me a book proposal. That's what we're talking about here. So
that's right. Exactly. Great. Okay, moving on. So let's hope that some publisher thinks, wow, this is exactly the book we have been waiting for, and they make you an offer and you accept it. So then you will have a contract with that publisher. And once the contract is signed, or actually sometimes before the contract is signed, notoriously it takes a while to get contracts signed in the publishing business, you will start working with an editor on staff at the publisher. They'll assign you an editor. In many cases at the bigger houses, that editor was the first person who read your book proposal. They're the one the agent actually called and said, hey, Kelly, I know you're interested in fictional nonfiction. I've got this fabulous self-help book I want to send you. It's about this. Can I send it to you? And I'd be like, yes, please. And then I would be the one going to editorial meeting and pitching that book. And we talked about this yesterday. I would come up with a hook for that book that I felt made the rest of the team say, okay, yes, we definitely need to buy this. So every publishing company has an acquisitions meeting basically every week where they look at the new submissions and the editors go to bat for the ones they would like to acquire and have on their list. So generally, the person who will be editing your book is the person who originally fell in love with your book, which is a nice thing because obviously then they have a personal vested interest in it. Once you guys do your editing, it'll go over to design, both for the interior design and the cover design, and it'll go through technical editing, which I'm going to talk about a little later today. And it'll go into production, which means that it'll be copy edited and it'll be typeset so it looks like an interior of a book, and you'll get to look at the proofreading pages at the same time it's being proofread, and then it'll just, be in its little journey all the way to the place where it gets printed, and it should be on shelves on your book pub day. So that is kind of the process of working with a traditional publisher. Book is printed and distributed is our last step. So one thing that we wanted to talk to you about are the upsides and the downsides of each of these two types of publishing, traditional and self-publishing. So with traditional publishing, one upside, money. So you will likely be paid, we hope, for your book. And I say we hope because some of the smaller publishers don't really do advances, or they do small advances, $500, $1,000. The bigger publishers are going to start at $10,000, $20,000 and go way up from there. Depending on who you are, it could be $1 million if you have a big platform and you're in high demand. But what you'll get is an advance first and then royalties. And I'm going to let Reed talk about this because this is his area of expertise. I do have a slide that I can show you about what this means. But do you want to take this away and explain what an advance is?
Sure. So basically the advance is money paid to you up front for future royalties. So it's a lot about what the publisher thinks is showing you how much they believe in your book, and really it's all based on not so much the idea of your book, that's important, but on your platform, or like we said yesterday, your direct connection to your audience. So the bigger that connection is, so the more followers that you have on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or TikTok, or the more, or podcasts that you go on, all those kind of things make a difference for how big your advance is going to be. And your email list is important as well. All those things are the things that they're going to look at. That's what an agent's going to look at. That's what a publisher's going to look at to decide how much money they're going to give you for an advance. And only like the top 10 publishers probably give big advances, like thousands of dollars. All the rest of the publishers are probably giving under that amount of money. Before Hay House was purchased by Penguin Random House, like we were one of the 7 publishers or something that gave over $1 million for a book. So in the United States, and it came out, it's a long story, but anyway, they just, but there's not that many people giving those big amounts of money, and it's all based on how big your platform is, how big your audience is, all that sort of thing. So I just want to know that. But the good thing for you guys here is knowing that is one thing. And I know a lot of you are thinking, well, my platform isn't that big. And that's the reason why we're going to tell you about self-publishing, and smaller publishers are an option, because when your platform isn't that big, you're not going to probably get picked up from a big publisher. And this is for nonfiction. For fiction, the platform doesn't matter.
Right.
So fiction, it's all about the book in fiction, or how many your last book sold. And if you have the next book in a series, they want to know how much the first book in the series sold. That's how your advance is determined there, how great they think the book is, and how many people are doing it, because you start building the platform for a fiction book after the book's published. For a nonfiction book, you want to start building that platform before the book's finished, and you're going to hear us talk about that again and again throughout these days, but that's important. But it's also important, so you guys don't get depressed, is that everyone starts with zero platform, right? So I know some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, but it's important for you to know that everyone starts at zero. And even if you don't have a big platform, you can win a Hay House contest, because it's all based on the book. But if you don't have a platform yet, you can be building your platform while you're writing your book. And like we said, we want to help you get your book done in a year. And so you have that year, start building it while you're writing the book, while your book's being edited, all the things we're going to be telling you about in these next days and things like that. And then, so an average, the royalties for the book are basically, for a paperback book, it's 7.5% of the retail price. For a hardcover book, it's 10 to 15% of the retail price. For ebooks and audiobooks, it's 25% of receipts. And these are the standard royalties. Some people might get a little more if they have a giant platform or past success, but these are the standard royalties from bigger publishers. The smaller publishers a lot of times will give royalty receipts rather than the cover price of the book. But that you'll see that, and obviously those royalties will be higher, because you're getting your royalty based on, after they sell the book, how much there's left that they're getting, and the book proceeds are divided up. When you see the cover price of the book, that isn't how much the publisher gets. They get like a different amount, like half or less.
So this is our new graphic.
This is our new graphic. I love it.
Very excited about. Thank you, Anna. So basically, we find that it's hard for people to visualize, or some people need to see it to really understand. So the bookseller gets 50% in most cases, not every case, but that's an average of the cover price. So if your book is $16.95, that means that $13-ish are going to Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whoever it is that's selling the book, okay?
Yeah.
Then 25% is retained by the publisher for editing, cover design, production, and keeping the lights on, paying salaries, it's overhead costs. So you can think of the publisher keeping 25% of that. Then printing itself costs 10%. That's the distribution cost, the actual getting the books out there. Then comes your chunk. You yourself get 15%. Let's say this is a top end of a hardcover, as you can see from our previous slide. And then where does your agent fit in? Your agent gets 15% of your proceeds. So if you get, let's say $100, let's hope you get more, but $100 advance, your agent is going to get $15. Okay, so this, you can screenshot this. If you're in the VIP, you'll actually get this PowerPoint. This is a piece of information that people really ask us about a lot. So you'll have this information now and understand your agent is paid by you, not by the publisher. Sometimes the money goes to the agent first just because of the agreement the agent has with the publisher, but their money comes out of your money. So what that means is that agents are working on spec for you, meaning they do not get paid anything, a legitimate agent who's not doing other editorial work. Sometimes agents will do editorial work, they'll get paid for that. But if they're just being your agent and they're getting your proposal ready to submit and they're submitting it for you, they're doing all of that because they believe in it so deeply that they actually think they're going to get paid for it at some point down the line. Okay, so this is why it's so hard to find an agent, because they are putting a lot on the line for you. You have to find an individual person who really resonates with your book. And when you do find that person, they're going to go to bat for you and they're going to work really hard for you. So if you do decide to submit to agents, you will kind of need to get used to the idea of rejection, because you're not going to be every single agentee. But when you find the agent who really falls in love with your proposal or your book, you know that they really believe in it, because they're not getting paid anything until you do. Okay, so that's my little pitch for our friends, the agents.
Yeah, and also, so people are asking in the chat, the agent gets 15% of all the money you ever get for the book. So it's not just the advance. So like if your book keeps selling for the next 20 years, they'll get 15% of the royalties forever.
Yes.
So that's the way it works. And I mean, it sounds great and everything, but not every book sells forever or sells a lot.
No, and I mean, if you think about it, the number of hours they're going to put into like getting your proposal ready with you, and then actually making all those phone calls to all those agents, sending it out, or these editors, following up with everybody, then working on the contract, doing all of that. And let's say they get a $10,000 advance. That means they're getting $1,500. If you don't earn out that advance, like if your book doesn't really go, that's all they ever get paid for working with you, answering your phone calls, basically for the rest of your career. So there's just a lot that it can be very small reward and it can be very big reward. So for the person who has the $1 million advance, well, there you go. $150,000 goes in the pocket of that agent. So that's why agents are also looking for authors they think are going to get a really big advance. And, it's all a business. So you have to have a thick skin and know that it only takes one. It only takes one agent. It only takes one publisher to fall in love with your work. And, we always say that if you wallpaper your walls with your rejection letters, at some point you will actually get a yes. It's a numbers game, really. So you've got to just be aware of that and be ready for it.
Yep. And there's lots and lots and lots of stories of best-selling books being turned down by 30 people.
That is exactly
like publishers and agents, and it's very, very common for that to happen unless you have a big giant platform. So the ones that get turned down are the ones that don't have the big platform yet, and then they go on to sell, and there's many bestsellers that start with a modest platform and build from there. And the key to that is writing a great book, which you're going to hear lots of information about in these few days as well. So
yeah, definitely. Okay, moving on to other upsides of working with a traditional publisher. Your editor, as I said, will be assigned to you. The production costs, the design, that will all be done for you, so you don't have to pay for it. That is why the publisher needs to know you have a platform in most cases, because they want to make back at least those expenses, right? Because they are putting in quite a bit in the front of the book production process. You'll also get a dedicated sales team and distribution. So, depends on what publisher it is, just how big the distribution will be and how big the sales team is. But oftentimes, even the smaller publishers contract with the larger publishers, so they get sort of a full team of people out there working with every bookstore in the country. You'll also get a foreign rights sales team. So if you're in the US, you may we found this many times before. Your book may do modestly well here, but it may end up being a massive hit in Estonia or another country. And you wouldn't know that if you didn't have foreign rights being sold on your behalf. So not every book is appropriate for foreign rights. Mine, for example, I've sold it nowhere. But I think it's because it really is, more about the U.S. publishing industry, although it does give information for everybody. But then you have someone like Nancy Levin, whose every book that she's ever written has been published in multiple countries. So, and I know that Louise.
Also, Kelly, your book isn't sold just in the U.S. It's sold in the U.S., Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand.
It's true.
South Africa.
So this is important because there is something called World English rights, meaning anywhere people read in English, they will get the book. But then the foreign rights tend to be for the non-English speaking countries.
So your book's not. And so all the information in Kelly's book is good for almost all of you on here, because obviously you understand English and you're writing your book's most likely in English. But the majority of the information is the same everywhere in the world.
That is true. That is very true. Good point. Okay, so these are the reasons why you might want to work with a publisher. Marketing and publicity, we put it as the last one here because people tend to think that it's the most important and it's the reason why they would want to go with a traditional publisher. But unfortunately, I think it's one of the things Reed and I have to give as the hard truth each time we teach something like this. Really, most of the marketing is going to be on your plate.
Yeah, so in general, the book publishing, since I've been doing it for a long time, since 1988. So in the beginning, 1988, the big publishers would all say that our job is to get the book in the store and your job is to get the book out of the store. And that's back when there were only stores. And so, they would get it in, you would have it on the bookshelf of a small store with 10,000 different books in it. Now the big stores have like 50,000 different books in them. But still, it was in a physical store. They would get it in, and then they would say, it's your job to get it out. Like still, even then, people would think, I signed with Random House, I don't have to do anything, they're going to sell it. That was never, ever the case, ever in history of publishing, ever the case. So you still had to do interviews, go around the country. Back then there was no internet, none of that. So you would literally go in your car or get on a plane and go places and do interviews and radio interviews and newspaper interviews to get it out. Then in today's world, the publishers still believe their only job is to get it in the stores, even though there's not that many stores, but get it in on Amazon, those kind of places, and it's still your job to get it out. Even the best publishers that are good at marketing, which publishers and marketing don't go together that well. But like Hay House is known for really being good at marketing. Even us, about 20% of the sales comes from Hay House effort, percent will still come from the author. So then everyone says, why do I need a publisher? And there are lots of reasons why you would still want a publisher, especially in nonfiction. In fiction, there's more and more and more people that are just self-publishing and continuing to self-publish. Yes. And there's very successful self-published authors in fiction. In nonfiction, there's less because what happens in nonfiction is that book publishing is difficult. And in nonfiction, if your book starts selling a great number of copies, a publisher will come and want to buy it, and you're likely going to be making more money from all kinds of other parts of your business than book publishing. So you're going to be either doing online courses or coaching or teaching or speaking or have a podcast that keeps you busy, and you're going to be making way more money on all of that than you're making on royalties from your book, even though your book might be driving all of your success in the other places. So usually the nonfiction authors find a publisher and do it. It just happens to be like right now on Amazon, the number and there's a book that's self-published nonfiction in the top 3 books or 4 books, and so that's an exception today. But I bet you in the next little bit, someone's going to buy that book, and it's going to be a big publisher will be publishing it. And this person just got lucky. They wrote a great book. This receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, A.J. Brown, was reading the book on the sideline during a playoff game, and everyone's like, what's going on? And then they said the name of the book, and it became the #1 book on Amazon.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's just, you never know when the day's going to come for your book. Like, let me tell you. And the book had been out 4 years. It's not like it was brand new. I mean, it had good reviews, but very few. And it's just like, boom, you never know when your day has come, you know?
That's right,
It's the perfect example for everything we're saying. You never know how your platform's going to be built. This guy probably never even met AJ Brown, and he has his book sitting there on the sidelines, so...
Yeah. And I had a friend whose book she had published, and several years later, it got picked up as an educational material for Weight Watchers. And next thing you know, it's being, shipped out in the, thousands. And so it's the kind of thing where we all have to trust a little bit that when we put our book out there, something could come along, a wave could come along and pick it up, which is why we're going to talk about self-publishing in just a second. But first, we're going to do the downsides of the traditional publishing industry. First and foremost, it is highly competitive. So we're just wanting to be super honest about that. It is not easy to rise above the noise of what is out there. The way that publishers are determining whether you are a good bet these days is that platform for nonfiction. For fiction, they do have to read the whole book, but it's still extremely, extremely competitive. So we just want you to know that. Doesn't mean don't do it. Doesn't mean that you don't have a shot. Everybody who's published by a traditional publisher was just like you at some point. So just keep that in mind. But you will need to make that journey. You'll need to make that journey toward either having the most amazing novel, really cream of the crop, or toward getting a platform built and an audience, testing out your material, making sure there's an audience that's interested in it. The next one is that it takes time. So this is one we find is really a surprise for a lot of people. If you were to, let's say, win the contest that the VIPs here in this room are going to be able to enter, from that point onward, you have to write the book. The book has to be edited, it has to be designed, it has to go into production, it has to be sold into to the booksellers. It's got a long journey ahead of it with a traditional publisher. There's just more time built into that schedule with a traditional publisher. It could be 18 to 24 months from the time you finish the book and deliver it to your editor.
And it's true, like it takes a while to get the books published. There are exceptions to every rule, but of course, the majority of the time it does, and the smaller traditional publishers publish them faster than the bigger traditional publishers.
That's right. Yeah,
that's for sure. So you definitely could get it a little sooner, but if you're in a hurry, then you're going to want to listen to the self-publishing part coming up.
Exactly. It also, if you are one of those creatives who does not want anyone to get in your business around cover design or editorial or the title, you probably are going to want to self-publish too, because contract with the publisher, since they are taking on the financial risk, they will have the final say on the title, the cover design, and the editorial. Now, I would say it is pretty rare that a publisher strong arms somebody into any of those things that they really don't want. Although when I was working at the big houses, it was considered my job to talk the author into whatever title the sales team wanted or the cover design. I would say that it tends to be that the sales team actually knows a lot about what's going to sell much more often than the author knows. But anyway, they've got say. And I will say in terms of my book, I had a completely different title, and then it went to the sales team and they came back and said my title was too focused on women, and this book could have an audience that was beyond just women. And so they wanted me to change the title. Now, I will say this has been my experience over and over working with authors, and it was my experience when I was the author. In telling me I had to change the title, I came up with a way better title. So just know.
And what was your original title?
My original title was Your Brave and Beautiful Book. This was around the time Brene Brown was really like coming out with like Daring Greatly and all these big things about being brave. And so that's why I decided on that. But it sounded a little bit too, like, I guess, girly leaning. I don't know. But anyway, I am so happy with the book You Were Born to Write. I feel like it's way better of a title. And so I'm grateful for that input. You just have to remember, when you're being published by a traditional house, you are not a solo person anymore. You are part of a village, and the village knows more than you about publishing in most cases.
Well,
so they're going to get to, yeah.
It's good to remember all that, and it's ironic because, like Louise Hay, when she published her You Can Heal Your Life book, by then had already started getting a platform and was doing speaking and doing all those things, and other publishers wanted to publish it. But the reason why that she didn't go with a traditional publisher is that she wanted to keep control of the title and every word in the book. She didn't want them changing it to be properly done, or like I said, that she dropped out of school when she was like 13 years old. So she didn't graduate from high school, obviously. And but she knew exactly how she wanted the book to be written because she had been teaching it so long, and she knew the words that would have the biggest impact on the reader. So that's the reason why she self-published the book. I mean, luckily for me, she did, because we wouldn't have Hay House without that. But
that's right.
It's very ironic that she ended up with a big, giant publishing company that after all of that.
Right.
And also I can tell you that more than one author that we have at Hay House came to Hay House because they hated the cover and title that their original publisher made them take for their first book. So they came to us for the second book because we're known to be extremely author friendly. And again, that all comes from Louise, because she was an author. She always wanted to keep the authors happy. So everyone at Hay House wants to keep the authors happy. We had an experience with an author that insisted on a title and cover, and the cover was the worst cover ever. Like, we used to share it at these events sometimes, like way back in the day before Kelly even did it. I used to show it. It was terrible. And then from then on, we said it's our decision from now on. But I would say 95% of the time, the author's in 100% agreement. They're always in agreement because we wouldn't do it without their help, because of what we said before. The author has to do most of the selling of the book, so you want them to be super happy. So.
Yep, that's exactly right. It's very important that they feel good about holding it up for the next 3 to 5 years. So
Yeah,
you want to make sure they like it.
But it's amazing how many publishers don't think of that.
It's actually true. Yeah, it's very true. It's a balance, because you want the sales team to be excited about it, but you also need the author to be excited about it. So the last downside of traditional publishing is, as we've said, you still have to do most of the marketing. So it's not I get the book contract, I put my feet up, and the book sells without me having to do anything. You really get the book done, and that's just the beginning of the journey. But if you stand behind your book, if you stand behind the message, if you stand behind the healing you want to offer other people, then you will find it a joy to be out there talking about your book, because that's really all marketing is. Marketing is just talking about your book consistently so people know what you have to offer. They know the benefit and the solution to the pain point that you are providing them in that book. And it's just you getting out there and talking about it. I mean, I feel thrilled to talk about my book every day because it really does help people, and I feel excited about that. So the marketing's on you, but it doesn't have to be onerous. All right, but moving on. So self-publishing, when I started in publishing, and when Louise published her book, you heard yesterday, she went to basically the equivalent of Kinko's and printed out copies of her book, her little pamphlet-sized book, because when she was publishing her book, or even right up until I would say the early 2000s, there were very few ways that you could get a book published if you did not have kind of what the publishers were looking for. And so people ended up finding smaller presses. I mean, in any town you're in, you can find a press that will actually just a company you can hire to print books for you. But the problem with that is you ended up having pallets of books in your garage that you could not sell. And people ended up being, frustrated with that, understandably, because you need to buy a quantity of books when you're getting them printed so that each book is a reasonable price that you're actually going to make a profit on it when you sell it. So long story short, it was very hard to self-publish. But in the early 2000s, this new innovation came along, is digital print on demand publishing. And not to get technical on you, I'll just say it changed the game completely because it made it possible to digitally print a book rather than having to set the type, the little letters in a row, and then print copies of it. And it had to happen all at once. You could actually print just one copy of a book at a time. And that is why self-publishing has become the most accessible way for absolutely anybody to publish a book. So we are both very much in support of self-publishing, not even just as an end game, although it might be. For you, you might say, you know what, I'm never going to want a publisher to have say over my title or my cover. Great, you can self-publish for the rest of your career. But it is an amazing way to start your career and prepare the way for a traditional publisher to be interested in you. So we were at an event last year that Hay House put on, and there were, maybe 30 speakers at the event. And I went through and counted, and well over a third of those speakers had originally self-published their book. So if you're sitting here going, oh, not me, I can't self-publish, I need to be picked up by a traditional publisher, you're, flying in the face of the proof that is, if you self-publish that book and it's great and you start building a platform, you can start building it at a smaller place. You don't need to start with that huge platform. You can use the book to build the platform. It's extremely effective, and the results are all around you. I mean, we can talk about, I'm sure, Reed, we have a couple people we're going to talk about in just a moment, who really did make a leap from self-publishing to being Hay House authors, to being other, authors with other big publishers. So keep that in mind. This can be not the end point, but the starting point.
Well,
so again,
also, like we'd mentioned, Louise, obviously, but and I'm going to tell you once, but like Deepak Chopra is an example. So most all of you have probably heard of him. He self-published his first book. So just to give you an idea. And people in the chat are going, do you have credibility from self-publishing? And nowadays, the self-publishing isn't a problem because you can put it up on Amazon and get exposure. The problem with self-publishing, even today, you're not going to get it in a bookstore, most likely, or not anything but an independent bookstore. But you are going to get it on Amazon, and people can buy it. And there's like 1 million books that are more than 1 million books self-published every single year. So it's a big number of them. Of course, most of them don't sell a big amount. Some are just doing it for their heart and their art, as Kelly would say. A lot of them are doing that. There's a lot of different options for doing that, but it's not a bad thing. And as we've already said, and this is the biggest myth that most people have coming in, is that if they self-publish, a big publisher won't want them, and that is 100% not true. So, like I've already said, Driving Over 50 was self-published and we published it. And I'm going to give you 2 more examples in a few minutes.
But there's so many. I mean, really, I counted like some of the biggest people who were speaking last year at that event who were Hay House authors did self-publish to start off with. So that stigma that used to be attached to what used to be called vanity publishing. By the way, the term vanity publishing, who do you think came up with that? The traditional publishers came up with that to dissuade people from self-publishing, to make them feel bad about themselves because they didn't make it into the publishing business. That is all gone now. It is completely out the window, thank goodness. Okay, so quickly the steps to self-publishing. First, you have to write the book. You don't need to write a book proposal, although I do say this. If you write a book proposal, even if you think you're going to self-publish, I would encourage you, if you're in the VIP here, to go ahead and write the book proposal for this contest, because you are going to learn so much about your book. You're going to have to formulate a succinct way to talk about it. You're going to have to know what's going to go in every chapter. You have to really think about, how are you going to get your book out there? What are the competitive titles for your book? Who is your audience? So every step of the book proposal is an amazing exercise, even if you self-publish. But technically, to self-publish, you only need to write the book. But then you will be the one that needs to hire the editors and designers. So I will say, There is a way that the self-publishing gets a bad reputation, and I will say the only legitimate bad reputation that it has is that no traditional publisher would let a book go to press without having been thoroughly edited. And my experience is that people who are self-publishing, because there's nobody outside of them telling them they have to do it, they look at it and they go, that's expensive, I don't want to do that. And instead I'm going to get my best friend's daughter who just graduated from college with an English degree to do a once over, and that's it. And that is where the bad reputation comes from. So even if you're self-publishing, you are going to need to invest if you want it to be a great book. Everyone who gets their book published, including me, has a very thorough edit by multiple other people, because that's what's expected and that's what's needed to get it to the level where it's going to be perfect when you publish it. So that would be the one thing that I would say about self-publishing. You're going to need to hire your cover designer, also the person who designs the interior of the book. That can be the same person if they know how to do it, but that's something that a lot of people don't realize needs to be designed. Then you have to choose your self-publisher. We're going to talk about one in particular in just a moment. And you've got to upload the files, and the files have to be, correctly created, and you've got to have a UPC code, and there's a lot of things you have to do. There are a lot of self-publishers that can walk you through exactly what you need to do, which is helpful because it's kind of learning a new language if you don't have a guide. Then you will be launching, marketing, and selling your book. So just like any other way, it's up to you to get that book out there. And again, launching, marketing, that is just talking about your book. It's just getting out there and being visible as an author of this particular book.
And we're going to talk about some of that in the days ahead too. Yes. So we'll
know
give you some more details on that, and we just want to let you know that.
Yeah, that's right. Upsides, no barrier to entry. You don't have to get anybody's approval to self-publish, which is fabulous. It's a much shorter timeline. So some people I know, they're thinking, oh, wow, I want to write a book that's very timely. I don't have 18 to 24 months from now to get this book out. Or they want to use the book to help them build their business. They've launched a coaching practice or some sort of a healing practice of some sort, or they're a marketing admin or something like that. And they really want to use that book to legitimize themselves. They don't have that kind of time. Self-publishing is the answer for that. You get full creative control, as we said before, nobody telling you what your cover design is going to be or your title, etc. This is one that I added here because I think it's really important. You can update the book whenever you want, and that's really different from a traditional publisher. With a traditional publisher, they're going to print copies of your book, and until every one of those copies sells, they're not going to want to do a reprint, right? So with self-publishing, when you're printing on demand, that means it gets printed when someone wants to buy it. So you can re-upload files, and for a fee, but not a huge fee, basically whenever you want. So if you find that you want to change something, or that the methodology you laid out, you started teaching it, and actually, step 3 doesn't really work, you can go back in there and change it, which is different from traditional publishing. Of course, you get all the financial reward. I mean, you have to pay a self-publisher something. Some are more, expensive or less expensive, but when it comes down to the actual money that comes to you, you get more of it. You will see that some assisted self-publishers do pay you a royalty, meaning they keep some money. But if you go direct with KDP, which is the Amazon brand of self-publishing, or Ingram Spark, which is another one that we approve of, you will get to keep all of the funds that come to you. The downsides are that you are paying that upfront cost for production and publication. So you do need to make sure you have the budget. There are many different price points. So different companies have different ways of working with you. They can go from low to very, very high. So you'll need to do the research around which one you want to work with, and we're going to give you some suggestions. You will have to source and hire those editors and designers. I find that the sourcing is the part that most people get scared about, but I'm going to talk to you in a little while about editors and where to find them. And designers are kind of on the same. You can find it. It's not that hard. It just seems a little bit daunting to start. And of course, you are still responsible for all the marketing, which is another one of the downsides. But that's a downside to either path. So, is it really a downside? It's just one of the realities of being an author today. Okay, so that is what we've got there. And I think I'm actually going to pause this because we have some, I think Curtis is going to share some covers, and Reed, you're going to tell a couple stories.
Well, I just think that we need to say the different ways, like you kind of mentioned for self-publishing, but there's assisted self-publishing, which Kelly mentioned, which is through a company like Balboa Press or Book Baby, or there's other ones that can do it, and those are usually a lower cost way for you to get all your cover, your editing, your design, your ISBN, and get it out into the world. But as Kelly said, you earn less money than if you did it all yourself. But you earn more money than if a traditional publisher were to do it in many cases. But it's a quick way to get your book out. And a lot of people use that for, especially they're just wanting to get the book for a small group of people, or they just want to get it done quickly and they don't have the time to get all that done for themselves. And then there's other ways that you can self-publish, like Kelly mentioned, like Ingram Spark, which is, some people I saw mention in the chat too, which is like KDP. I mean, KN Literary helps people get self-publish their books through Ingram Spark. And we recommend that for, especially for the entrepreneurs out there who want to really use their book to build their business, self-publish, and you have a business that you want to create, run, make money, and have control of. We recommend Ingram Spark, no matter if you use someone to help you do it yourself, whatever, but that's a good one. Now, for the rest of you that maybe want to do it yourself, but want to do it quicker and easier, you can do it through Kindle Direct Publishing, which is through Amazon. And that's easy to do as well, and fast, and you can get it done, but you still have to do all the editing and things like that, which Kelly mentioned. And that's super, super important part of the process if you do it yourself, but especially if you're doing it to build a business, because you don't want a bunch of your clients or potential clients seeing, a bunch of you put out a work that's not good. No one's going to want to hire you for anything else or come to your business for something else. You want to put your best foot forward in everything you do. So we started, we work with Author Solution for Balboa Press. It's part of Hay House, and it's a third party, like we don't own them or anything, but it's a thing that we started many years ago. I think it's like 15 years ago.
It's been a long time.
Like, we've published over 10,000 books through Balboa Press. And it's funny because we have an author that's at Hay House. His name's Sean Leonard. And Kelly mentioned that when we did a I Can Do It event a couple years ago, that he was one of the speakers at the event, and he was up there speaking, and he said, "Oh, well, I published my first book at Balboa Press." And I didn't even know that. Like, it's so funny because we usually look at all the sales of the books and the authors, and like, I personally don't, but our editorial team and that sort of thing looks through all that. But we found out there that Sean Leonard published a book called Language of Spirit at Balboa Press, and he just wanted, for the reason lots of people do, they wanted to get their book out quickly. He had like a TV show on a small cable channel in Canada, and it was very popular there, so he wanted to get it out. And then he did that, and then later he sent his book proposal, or someone recommended him to us, I think, and we connected with him from Hay House and said he's an amazing medium, you should talk to him. And then we published his book called Spirit Talker, and it became a big bestseller in Canada, and it sold well in the US, UK, Australia, all around the world. And he's done big events with us online with 100,000 people, like, amazing. So he's a great guy. And it all came from Balboa Press. Like, you just don't even know.
Yeah.
And then we had another author from Balboa Press, and it was, and this one, she published with Balboa Press in Australia, because we have Australia, the UK, and the US Balboa Press connections. And she had published the book in Australia, and it just had come out in Australia, and it started getting all kinds of attention all around the world from her website. And this was like at the beginning of the web, more like right when it was taking off. And a newspaper in the UK discovered her website, and she had something going viral from it. And they did a whole article about this book, and it's called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And this is the original cover right here that she used to self-publishing. And usually Kelly and I say that you can't judge a book by its cover except when it's self-published. And
That's right.
Usually always tell, but she actually did a pretty good job of with that self-published book cover, and we used that originally, and then we later transformed it, as you see him flipping here on the screen, to the new cover that we just released a little bit ago. After it was like the 10-year anniversary edition of the book. But this book became a huge bestseller in Germany. In fact, it's still a huge bestseller in Germany, and I think it's even still on the bestseller list in Germany. It became a giant bestseller, all from that article from the UK. It got picked up in Germany, and then it spread around there. And actually, we got the biggest advance that we've ever gotten still to this day from Germany of $250,000 for the self-published book. But AAS had already picked it up, and we sold it to Germany because she wouldn't have known how to sell it to Germany, like Kelly mentioned earlier. But it's still selling super well right now today in America. In fact, last year it had a huge resurgence. Some people were talking about it. You just never know. But all started with Balboa Press. There, you can talk to Balboa Press yourself in the expert booths after we're done here and find all out about what they do. But it is a low-priced way to get your book out into the world. So
that's great. And I'm going to go ahead and hop into our next little section, which is just because we wanted to give you now, Reed and I are both more, teachers of the publishing process than we are teachers of actual writing. Writing can be its own craft, and there's really deep teachings that can happen, especially if you're writing fiction, and the how to, get your narrator right and how to get the narrative arc structure right. And we do teach on that in our membership. But here we wanted to just give a little taste of some things that we've found can be very helpful to just about anybody who is in the process of working on writing a book. So this is what we found, is that successful writers do three things. The first one is they read the competition. This is incredibly important. I find so often people will say, I don't want to read any other book that's about my topic because then I'm going to feel terrible, like they did a better job, or my book's already been written, or I'll plagiarize them. I'll take their ideas accidentally. And the truth is, we want you reading so deeply in that bookshelf that you could never plagiarize one other writer because you've read dozens of books on the same topic. You need to know what is out there on the shelf. Now, why? It's partially because your ideal reader knows. Your ideal reader is very familiar. They're probably reading all of those other books, and so is your potential agent, and so is your potential publisher. They all are very well educated. If you want to be a professional writer of books, you also need the time to be educated in what it is that is already out there on the shelf. It will help you to position your book to be a little bit more unique. You can still write the same book, but how you title it or how you talk about it might be a little different, so you can see, oh, this is a niche marketplace that hasn't yet been filled, because you're that well educated. So again, it goes back to yesterday, looking at your genre, looking at your niche, looking at your ideal reader, going out there and reading what they are already reading. It's extremely, extremely important. And it also will help you develop your own voice, because you'll see how different people write so differently, and you yourself can practice writing in different styles, different ways, and find the one that works best for you and your material. Second thing that these authors do is they are writing most days a week. I would love to know, send us a little heart if you are writing most days a week. I would really like to know. I'm very curious. Put up a little heart, a little bit. Yeah, that's right. Good job. I love it. Fabulous. So most days a week. Look at all of you. I love that. Good job. A lot of you. It's fabulous. Maybe you've been in our teaching before. Maybe you just are a natural writer. I mean, some people really do write every day. I'm an everyday writer. I am a journaler, so I write every day, and I love it. It's part of my routine. But I don't, write a book every day. But when I was working on my book, I was writing every single or most days a week. For me, it was 5 days a week. Most days a week, it means a minimum of 4. Yes, but I'm not telling you how much time to write. You can write truly for 15 minutes, 4 days a week, and you will make more progress than you could possibly imagine when you're sitting there fretting over where you're going to find an 8-hour day to write. That's the thing. People think that they should write in a huge chunk. I always say there's no better way to not be writing than to schedule and pay for an Airbnb in the woods where you're going to write your entire book in a week. I guarantee you will end up cleaning the house for them because that will be so much easier than sitting down with that enormous task of having to write the entire book. It doesn't work for anyone, okay? So please carve out time in the schedule where all of your other important things are. So not just, generally, vaguely, I want to write every day. No, you put it in your calendar and you keep that agreement with yourself.
Yep, so, you just have to write a page a day, and then a page a day for a year gives you a book. So just
gives you a too long book, actually.
Yeah, that'd be a long book, but you can get it a little edited.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Well, there is one book, Kelly, that the guy went for a week and wrote it, and it was the biggest book of the decade.
I usually don't talk about I let you talk about that because it's such the exception to the rule. But do you want to just...
No, Wayne Dyer wrote his entire book in a week in a hotel room. So.
And what I will tell you is the difference there, and this might be true for some of you. He had been teaching that material repeatedly. He had taught a class, and every class was essentially a chapter of that book. So he knew the material inside and out. And if you do actually want a shortcut to writing your book, teaching the material is an amazing shortcut. Obviously, just for nonfiction, not for fiction. No shortcuts for you fiction writers. You got to just have your heart in it. But for those of you who are writing a methodology or teaching people something that you learned about your own healing process, teaching that as maybe it's a once a week evening Zoom call for 1 hour for 8 weeks, where each time you teach 1 or 2 chapters worth of content. I cannot tell you a better way to learn about your work, to learn about how it lands with people, to get people's success stories that you can then incorporate into the book. It can be an amazing way to get clear on what it is that you're writing. There is nothing harder than writing a book about which you are unclear. And some of you already know that because you're doing it right now. And that's fine. You're working out the material in the process of writing the book. But it is much, much easier to have the material worked out beforehand and then sit down and craft it into a book. So I will say a great way to do that is to be teaching it, whether you're teaching it in social media posts or YouTube or TikTok videos, however you're teaching it, you're going to get feedback from people. They're going to give you insight and information about what's working, about what you're teaching, and more importantly, what's not working about what you're teaching. So I highly recommend that. We always talk about it. Okay, but back to writing most days a week. Actually getting into the habit of writing is actually the most important thing for you. And in our membership, we do talk about building that writing habit because there are some very specific strategies you can use. But one book that Reed and I both love is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And that can be an excellent starting point for learning some habits that will help you on the journey toward getting your book written. Because getting your book, I always say, you're not a writer unless you're writing. And also, by extension, a lot of people who say, oh, I'm not a writer. I'm like, are you writing? They're like, oh, yeah, I write all the time. I'm like, well, then you're a writer. Okay, so it's that simple. You can call yourself a writer if you're writing.
Yeah, the interesting part about Atomic Habits is really the book's all about him writing his book.
That is exactly right. Isn't that so funny?
That's why it's good for writers, because honestly, all the examples he uses in the book, or a lot of them, have to do with writing his own book.
Yes,
obviously exactly. That's been one of the biggest selling nonfiction books for the last 5 years or 4 years. So it's huge.
Love it. That's so good. Okay, and then the last tip we have for you right now is my favorite, which is to start with an outline. Now, I know some of you are going to roll your eyes. You're going to say, absolutely not, I'm not doing that. And there are lots of people out there that'll teach you, especially how to write a novel without having to outline it first. And best to them. That's all I'll say, best to them. And if that's you, there are plenty of people out there that can teach you their methodology for doing that. I happen to believe in outlines. And the reason I do is that I've seen over and over that once you get into a viable outline that really feels like you and your book, it is much easier to write the book because you sit down to your computer or your notepad, however you're writing, knowing what the next step is. I think the biggest blocker to actually writing is not knowing what you're writing that day. Sitting down with this huge task of working on your book in some general way and not knowing where to start. If you have an outline that's a detailed outline where you have multiple bullet points laid out for each chapter, you never have to ask yourself, where should I start? You can actually just look at that outline and pick whatever inspiration you have. You don't have to write it in order. You can write whatever you're inspired to write that day. So I call it the way that you get bite-sized homework assignments for your writing of your book. And it's the way I wrote my way through my book. I would never personally write a book without an outline, but some people do. I will say, I would love for you all to take a little homework assignment from me, which is to do something that we call the Post-it note exercise. This is not unique to me or even to book writing, but you basically are going to take a pad of sticky notes. I have a pad of sticky notes right here. I'm a sticky note person. And you're going to jot down 8 to 10 possible, I say possible, draft, not perfect, not final, chapter topics. If you're writing a story, whether it's a novel or your memoir, these could be turning points that you had on the journey that you're writing about in your own life, or turning points that your protagonist has in their journey. And again, these don't have to be perfect. It can just be some notes jotted down. That's the first step. Second step, arrange those notes in some order on the wall or on a window or on a mirror. So you can start standing back and looking at them and thinking, I wonder, oh, you know what I realized? I need to put this scene in between this one and this one, new sticky note. Or I know what I want to do with this chapter. I'm going to go ahead and repeat the same process for the subtopics in the chapter or the scenes that are in the chapter. So this can be a way, if you're kinesthetic and you need to have something you can look at and you're more visual and writing down on the computer isn't going to inspire you, try Post-it notes. One color for chapters, another color for the turning points or the scenes, depending on which, or the subtopics, depending on what kind of book you're writing. This can be an easy, effortless way to get into a very quick and drafty outline. It doesn't have to be perfect. Take all of those ideas that you have that it has to be, exactly right, and throw them out the window. For this, getting started is better than getting it perfect. Okay? So those are our little tips that we have for you today. There's so much more we could say, but that's all we've got time for right now. And so I think we have a special presentation.
Well, I think let's talk about editing because
you want to jump into that?
Special guests, they're finding the video.
Oh, fantastic. Great. I love it. I love talking about editing. Okay, great. So we're going to jump really quickly back into the editing process. Okay, great. Oh, this is a quote that I love that I forgot to say. Just write every day of your life. Read intensely, then see what happens. Most of my friends who are put on that diet have very pleasant careers. It's Ray Bradbury, who's an amazing science fiction writer. So that's all we're telling you to do is just to read and just to write, and you'll get somewhere. Okay, so this is just a quick presentation about editors. I've done a longer one at times, but I wanted to shorten it a little bit just to get it in today, just so you understand the role of the editor, because the editor is very key to getting your book into the shape it needs to be in so that it can stand up on the shelf next to books that are published by traditional publishers. So first, what does an editor do at the traditional publishing houses? In many cases, they are involved in the choosing of which books to publish. Like I said, the agent calls them, they read the proposal or the manuscript, they bring it to the editorial team meeting, they make a pitch for it, they make the offer on the book, they negotiate the contract. The editor has many hats at a traditional publisher, and that's the first one. They also are going to be the advocate for your book inside of the publishing company. They're the one going to the sales team meeting, they're the one pitching pitching your book at the launch meeting each season. They're the one writing the cover copy in a lot of cases. They might ask you to do it to start, but they are the ones that are have the final say on it. So they are going to be very involved, and they're your liaison to all the different departments at the publishing company. They'll also be helping you, and sometimes from the start, shaping the book. They might get your book proposal and they may think, I would say you're an amazing author, you're the right person to write this book, but I feel like we should talk about the order of the chapters, or I kind of feel like the book should actually have another section to it because we really need to solve this problem as well. And you can decide together what you want to do with it, but they may be involved in that process. They're going to weigh in on the structure and the content for sure, and you are going to need to listen to them. It doesn't mean you have to take every edit or suggestion they make, but I always say if they make a suggestion, there's a reason for that, and you should at least listen to what they have to say and try to address the issue they are pointing to. They are a professional. Whether or not you feel like they're exactly your ideal reader, they are working on dozens of books with dozens of different ideal readers, and they are in the industry. They know what they're talking about, so listen to them. And if you have I always loved it when I would give a suggestion to an author and they would come back with something even better. So know that you can do that. And then they dive into the art of the sentences as well. So they're going to be doing that. What this picture is of going over it. We used to use a pencil on actual paper, but now we do it on track changes on usually Microsoft Word in the industry. And these art of the sentences, this is just making sure that there's just clarity and flow on every page. That's a part of their goal. And then at the very end of the day, they're going to fix typos and correct grammar. So I put that at the end because most people think that's what an editor does. But the truth is that there are editors that's their main job. But most of the people you think of as your editor are not actually so focused on that. They're focused on all these other things. They're the holistic advocate for the book in the house and directly with you. Okay, 2 types of editors you're going to encounter. The first is content editors. That's me. I'm the person who acquired the book. I'm the person who's doing all that liaisoning at the house. I am your editor if I'm working at your publishing company. I'll provide you with creative direction. I'll give you developmental feedback, and I'm going to edit the book line by line. Okay, that's the content editor's job. When I am done, I pass it over to production and they give it to the technical editors. So these are the people that are going to copy edit. That's looking at the very details, every little bit, every I has to be dotted, every T crossed, every house style rule is maintained from page 1 to page 200. Their job is to get into the weeds. And that happens before the book gets set into type. And set into type means that it goes from being a manuscript to looking like this, right? It's set into type here. So that's what copy editing happens before that. After it's set into type, it goes into proofreading. And this is what most people, I think of as editing, checking to make sure there are no errors. Yes, this is part of the editing process, but it comes at the very end. And at the traditional publishers, it's usually somewhere between 3 and 5 rounds of proofreading. I tell you that because most of my self-published authors do not want to invest 3 to 5 rounds of proofreading. And you don't have to, but I do suggest you do some content editing and some technical editing. If you don't, you're going to have a hard time standing up next to those books on the shelf that are put through 6 to 8 rounds of editing minimum before they hit the bookshelves, okay, at the traditional publishers. People always ask me what an editor costs. So it's really all over the place, okay? So there are people that will do it for you very, very cheap because they're just getting started and they want to build a book list. Then you'll have people who've been in the industry for 25 years like me, and I am not cheap. So you've got to understand you can find your price point somewhere in between the two, right? But the average industry pricing for content editing, which is developmental editing and line editing, is 4 to 8 cents a word, which I did the math for you. For a 65,000 word book, which is a typical length for the type of books we're talking about, 2,600 to 5,200 per round. So you could just get 1 round, but most people get at least 2 because they want developmental and line editing, okay? So again, that's just average industry pricing. You can find much cheaper, you can find much more expensive. For technical editing, if you're self-publishing, again, I would love for you to get a copy edit and a proofread. It seems very important to me. 2 to 4 cents and up per word or editorial round. So that's about $1,300 to $2,600 for the copy edit, and the same price for the proofread. So just to give you a sense that it's not free, right? It's not going to be free. You need to have a budget set aside for this work because you are paying someone their livelihood. They're actually doing what they do professionally on your behalf, and you are going to get professional results in return. So that's what's important, because we want you to get results for the book that you take the time to write and put out in the world. What to look for when you're looking for an editor: someone who edits books for a living, please. Don't hire your sister's, your niece who just got out of college. I mean, you can, it's never a bad thing to get multiple sets of eyes on your book, but that is not a professional editor. A professional editor is someone who's doing this all the time and really understands. You want to find someone who can give you a trustworthy referral, or if you don't have a trustworthy referral, you need to get that editor's references and call them. Okay. You want at least 2 people you can talk to. Now, my company, we do referrals. We vet everybody right down to like every detail. So you can trust us, and we guarantee you're going to be getting an editor who knows what they're doing. There are other companies like ours that do the same thing. But then there are also places where you can find an editor on the web. Again, this is where you're going to find someone a little less expensive. In that case, you don't have that vetting. You don't have those people who are, guaranteeing you're getting what you're paying for. Make sure you do that vetting yourself, calling their references. You want them to edit and read, ideally, in your genre. So this doesn't mean that that's the only thing they edit and read, but you want them to have some experience with your genre. And ideally, you want them to love it. You want them to be excited about reading it. It's really important. And finally, a personality match. You're going to be doing a lot of work with them. You want to make sure that you guys get along. It's a very important part. Okay, how do you find a good one? Publishersmarketplace.com is the industry standard. This is where U.S. publishing industry professionals, almost all, have some sort of a listing. It is a paid website. It's $25 a month. I say this very often. You can get in there, get what you need, and get out for $25. You know what I mean? You can cancel your subscription right away. Everyone who's anyone in the publishing industry gets an email from Publishers Marketplace every business day of the week. It is the hub for the industry. So you can also get a little window into what's going on in the industry if you would like. You can just Google editors in your area. Again, this is where you're going to want to do your due diligence and get references and make sure that they really are who they say they are. But if you want someone who's in your hometown who might meet with you at a coffee shop or something like that, Google is going to be your friend. Again, in terms of websites where you can go and find someone who's posting their, hey, I'm throwing out my shingle, I'm a book editor. Again, you want to make sure that they actually are a book editor. Or if you're looking for the lowest price person, even if they don't have a huge book list yet, you can at least know that they care and they want to be an editor, because they wouldn't have an ad here otherwise. And you usually get what you pay for in terms of experience. But again, you might find somebody great. So Upwork is a place that we suggest people look. And of course, I would love it if you wanted to come to KN Literary. We do vet every editor. We only work with professional book editors, and we are on your side and provide an entire team with you the whole way through, should that be of interest to you. Okay, so there you go. That was the fastest I have ever done. There you go. I blasted you with information. Those of you who are in the VIP, you will be getting the PowerPoint, so you can look through it more carefully.
We have lots and lots and lots of info for you. So we're gonna have Colette Barron Reed join us now.
Yes.
And she's gonna talk to you like people love this talk. I'll just tell you right now, you're gonna love it.
I was going to talk to you about how you were going to meet the spirit of your book, but I want to first talk about how you got to writing a book. Like, what is your inspiration? And I think first, before we talk about meeting the spirit of your book, is to understand that it comes from inspiration, right? So when we think of what the word inspiration means, it actually means of the spirit. It is in spiritus. That's the Latin explanation, and that means it's not intellectual. So I want you guys to go with me on a little journey. I want you to go to the very beginning, and if you get this right, then your book proposal that 50% of you are here to try to figure out how to do will come a whole lot easier, because your inspired idea right? When it feels like a download, right? And please feel free to talk in the chat, right? You get sudden clarity, an idea that seemingly comes from nowhere, or you've been believing that you were meant to do something like this it may not even made any sense. I know one author, successful author, said, I always knew I was supposed to write a book. I never knew what it was going to be about until my son died, for example, and then she became a bestseller. So you know, like, you just know that you're meant to do this. So put up your hands or say in the chat, have you felt that you've meant to do this, right? Even if you think, like, I'm not sure why, but this is what I'm supposed to do, right? Okay, look at how many of you. So when we think about inspiration, what happens to us as authors is sometimes it changes into something that it's not, because inspiration it kind of blends into motivation. And I want to really be very clear with you about how these two things are not the same. So inspiration comes from spirit, but none of us have been taught that our books are alive. No, nobody teaches us that. Nobody teaches us that, you know, that anything beyond us and a breathing animal or grass or whatever is alive, that there's something is alive. And so we immediately will go into motivation, which comes from the desire to achieve a result. And we can sometimes mess up on the inspiration because then we become motivated for an outcome. And I really want to tell you guys, like, I know some of you are thinking, like, I am super successful and I've never had a New York Times bestseller. All right. Like, and I'm successful in spite of myself. So it's like, I've always followed the inspiration. And when I didn't, and I'll tell you a story about that later, and created something and almost completed it and I had to start again. So it's like, when you are following your inspiration and you go back to it, right? And you remember that the inspiration is the fuel behind the motivation, and not just taking off in the motivation because you think, oh, I'm going to get a bestseller, or I'm going to write this and then they're going to like it because this audience wants me, or something like that. If you forget spirit, oftentimes you'll get stuck. Now, I'll go back to the inspired piece because nobody wants to talk about being stuck too long. But anyway, let's say your book is a story. I'm writing fiction right now, and I find the characters talk to me, and I don't have as difficult a time, for example, than a nonfiction book. When I see this as alive, I always knew my oracle cards were living things. But if you were writing, say, a semi-autobiographical book, or maybe you've learned things, you realize that you can synthesize the content to help other people. And you were obviously inspired to come to Hay House, and Hay House is the largest and most important spiritually. I mean, even though it does other things too, but it is. Louise Hay founded this on spiritual principles. So I want to ask you to go back to the very, very beginning. Did you feel that spirit was talking to you when you got the idea for your book? Put up your hand. Put up your hand if you felt that was true. Like, oh, something is talking to you. The something is spirit. Right? Something is spiritual. But when you got stuck, who were you talking to then? Who was talking to you? Because everybody here has gotten stuck. If you're writing a book, you're going to get stuck. And we can't help it. We are indoctrinated into intellectualism and into the idea that motivation and goal setting and reaching a reward is the best way to get her done. Right? So, but when we get stuck, our negative biased mind is talking to us, right? It's not spirit. Spirit doesn't talk to us when we get stuck about why we're stuck, unless we ask it, unless we walk away and say, what's happening? Show me the way, right? But we always have to go back to that. So I just want you to kind of allow me to make this assumption with you that this is true. So if you could imagine that your book is alive, just imagine your hands, and it's a living thing. Everything has a spirit. And your book has a blueprint in it already for its success, who it's meant to touch. And again, success, not necessarily material. The first success you're going to feel is having the book in your hand. I'll never forget that first feeling, like, whoa, I completed this thing. Like, oh my God, I had a baby, right? So when your baby is born, You have to assume, just like an actual baby, that it has a destiny. Your book has a destiny built in it already. You don't have to overthink that. And I have talked about the concept of the spirit of your book, a spirit of a book, also to entrepreneurs about their businesses in my spirit of your business course. And I've worked directly with people, but the same concept is most definitely applied to books and creative projects. So when you look at I'm writing, I'm making this happen, right? That's the traditional view of writing. I'm writing a book. I am making this happen versus working with the book as a living being. What's the difference, right? I am making this happen. I am writing the book versus the book tells you who it is and you are translating it and you're in service to the spirit of the book. A very different way of looking at it. I'm making this happen. I'm the one writing. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't remember the idea. Boom, 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 boom. I got to force myself to do this too. Who are you? Show me how I can be of service. Send me the ideas. Send me the ideas. And then you wait. And sometimes you leave the house and go for a walk and then the idea comes, right? So it's a very, very different relationship when you are, and then I'm in service to the spirit of the book because the book wants to be born. It chose you to bring it to life. This spirit of this book picked you. You're the one to bring it to life, to help people. Every single one of your books is to help at least one person and will change a life. That I will tell you, there's not one person in here that is not a true statement about. But can you feel the difference between these two ways of approaching this? Right? So I want you to leave a comment if you've really been inspired to write your book, and also leave a comment if you feel that the book at times has been a chore. So I really just want to know how many of you have got stuck. Like, be honest. Be honest. Right? So when you're a person who wants a book deal and you know you're inspired and you decide I'm going to write the book, I'm going to tell what it is. It's mine. I did it. Right? If it's alive, wouldn't you be in relationship with it? That you and the spirit of your book? You're not in charge of it. If you don't listen to it, it'll sit off to the corner and wait until you wake up. And that's when the beautiful moment is when you get stuck. You have an opportunity to go back to the spirit of the book and ask it a question. Is this making sense to everybody? I mean, it may not make total sense. Like, it's a unique way of approaching this, but okay. All right. So I have to tell you this crazy story. So I was living in Sedona, Arizona, and I had just finished, I had Messages from Spirit was published, my 2 Oracle card decks, Wisdom of Avalon, I did the Enchanted Map deck. That one, I was so engaged, it was so alive, and then I decided I needed a bestseller. I'm not kidding you. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna show you the shadow of all of this, right? And I'm like, okay, they didn't do that great. I gotta write another one because they offered me, are you gonna write another one? What do you want to write about? So I felt, okay, I know what it is. It's about a quest, and because I've been on a quest, and I think the quest to have it all is part of it, because isn't that about how we co-create and manifest? We want to be able to be engaged in everything, right? And so it sounded good, right? And I'm like, okay, this is good. And what thing I was hiding was that I wanted it to be really smart, because I thought at this point, given that I had studied Jungian psychology and all this stuff, but I never got my degree, and Reed in his drawl said, you don't need to get a degree, right? So, because I'm like, I should have a degree now. I should do all this things, right? But anyway, so I got into Headspace, and I really wanted this book to touch a lot of people, and I kept visualizing a big bestseller, and then I kept visualizing, where it was going to go and how I was going to finish it, and I ended up writing a very large psychology textbook. And it had no frickin' soul. And I couldn't understand why I kept getting, though I didn't see that at the time, because there was an anxiety and there was an ambition that was driving me. It was not the initial inspiration. I literally pushed that aside. I'm going, I need to show people how smart I am and how much I know about all this stuff, because after all, I do. And I'm going to put it all in this one book. So I was really messed up about, I couldn't write the chapter on spirit. Okay, that was the one that I got stuck on, because I was writing this whole chapter about spirit, bringing spirit into your writing, into the question to have it all. You have to have spirit in things, right? So I sit in Sedona. I live across from Cathedral Rock. I go for a walk. I sit there and I am like, really help me. And it's the first time I asked the book for help. It's the first time I even asked the book to show me what it was. If you want to know what happened, it showed me I wasn't writing the book it was. You're not translating me at all. And I knew it was true. That my ambition was leading me, that the book deal, that the next book and the sales of the book, and I did the exact same thing, by the way, with my music career, that the end game, the ambition to be seen as successful, and that my life experience and all the things that I'm going to touch people and it was going to impact people, the impact became something else. And so I realized while I was sitting there that I was going to have to make a phone call and tell, hey, and I bawled. I sat there going, I'm going to have to call Hay House. I called Reed, said, I can't hand this book in. I've just written a psychology textbook, which he told me not to do, but he's pretty good when you have to listen to him when he says stuff. Like it's worthwhile. But anyway, and then what I did, I dove into all this. I partnered with the spirit of my book, the real book. It led me to write the book, The Map, that became a bestseller. It actually was a bestseller for 10 days. By the way, I took pictures every day. It was the #1 book on Barnes and Nobles. And who cares? It published in 27 languages. And it wasn't important where it went, but it was true. It was authentic and it was unique. And it was my unique take on things, because I kept in touch with the spirit of the book, and it kept reminding me, think about this, talk to Bruce Lipton about that, phone so-and-so. Like I was on this incredible Easter egg hunt with this book, and it became something I'm so proud of. It never became huge or whatever, but it's huge to me because it was a proof to me that when I stayed inspiration and followed the thread and literally put aside how badly I wanted it to do well and be seen and famous or whatever the heck it was, and I'm going to tell you something. It was the greatest lesson I had ever had, because I realized that I always had to be in service to whatever project I was doing. So I want you to consider too that when you think of the spirit of your book, when you're in a relationship with the spirit of your book, the book itself, I'll give you an analogy. Okay, I'm going to give you an analogy. I'm going to give you an analogy about radio. When a radio plays music, it doesn't assume it's completely self-sufficient, right? We don't assume that. Like, you don't look at it and go, oh, the radio is making music. It's not the generator of the music. The radio is the receiver and the translator. We are the radios. You got that? We're like radios. We're receiving. Intuition isn't something you receive. You receive inspiration. It's not something you generate from inside you. You do have a lot. It's going to pick through your memories. It's going to bring up the music that you love that's authentic to you. Yes, absolutely. It's in there too. But we are not the generator. If we think that we are just thinking our way through the book in front of us, we will be like a generator and we won't hear what it really needs to be. And most of us fall asleep on this because we're never taught that. Every single one of you is channeling your book, by the way. Every one of you is. You're all channelers. I know it's like, oh, I'm not a channeler. Yes, you are. And the reason why that's a weird word is that we've all been taught that our ambition to do something is to take it and make it. We are taught we have to do it, but first we have to receive, right? So I know that some of you are stuck, and you have been stuck, and maybe you're also stuck on the idea that you need to know how to write a proposal, and you need all those elements to get a successful product. But what if you go back to the book before you write the proposal and say, who are you? Who are you really? Who do you want to reach? How do I feel talking to you? Like, am I doing a good job in service to you? What is your message? Not as what's my message? It's what's your message? Because the book is using you also as a conduit, right? So you are its muse. It's not the other way around. And if you see it that way, it gets really cool and very fun and very wild. So if you learn to allow the book to speak to you, you're going to realize that it has the map. You don't have the map. You can make it up as you go. And once in a while, you listen to your inspiration. But like happened to me, I mean, what if the book wants you to step into a different flow of your life? What if it says to you, come talk to me now? I'm going to give you a flash of insight, then take a break. Most of us are taught to stay on the computer. Like, stick it out every single day. Just sit there and stare at it if nothing comes. No. Sometimes you're writing and writing. Like my art, I created 44 giant paintings. And then when it was done, I needed a break. And it wasn't an intellectual decision. They stopped talking to me. They're like, go sit down. I'm like, do something else, right? When our writing, creating a book, even making the proposals that you want and visualizing things, and it's good to visualize an outcome. Why not? But then you have to surrender it. So if there's a natural rhythm in the partnership between you and your book, right? If you don't trust the spirit of your book, you won't finish the book, right? Does that make sense to everybody? I'd love to hear some. I'm going to go. I've been trying to look at the chat here, right? Make sense? Right? It's a different way of approaching this, right? Very, very different. And so it loves you too. Your book loves you. It picked you. It chose you. You know that Louise's book chose her. And as a result of that, you can heal your life. That took her life experience and all the things like that, right? And created you so we can be here, right? That this is so important for you to know. You're not here by accident. And you can't, I love it, you can't unring the bell now. That's right. So I just want to show you that there is another way that you can also, add to the thing that you knew how to do, which you do know how, you need to know how to write, obviously. And I'm just going to turn the chat off because I'm going to get all excited and what you're saying. But, it's just so important that you realize like you're going to have help. You have this course, you have Reed, you have Kelly. KN Literary Agency is like one of the best things that's ever happened to you guys that you don't even know about yet, maybe. But it's like there's so much help to be had. But the greatest help is the spirit of your book, the one that chose you to bring it to life, to help other people. And it's none of your business how many people it's going to help. Because I'm going to tell you something. If you create a fake, like there's a fake way of getting seen and known, you will always feel like a fraud. You just will. If it's not, I'll never forget when I got to that point, I thought, I'm a big ass fraud. Now, sometimes you have imposter syndrome, but that's the other thing. You don't have to have imposter syndrome because you're not the only one on the board here. You have a spirit of your book. You just need to learn how to translate it. And then you're going to come up with all kinds of ideas, right? Why not? Why not try this? Be an instrument. Be an instrument in service to the book and then in service to who is meant to be impacted by your words, as opposed to, because we're going to get so scared. If you start focusing on manifesting your impact, that's like saying, I want to be famous. Or you got so many hidden agendas attached to that, and then you're not going to finish your book. You just won't. Or something will waylay you. Or you're going to talk about it and never get there. And you're always going to wonder why it's not happening. Do it for the sake of the book, and it's going to be what it is. Seriously. And you don't have, you know what? I love the question. What happens if we're not a confident writer, but you have a message? You get help. You get help. You get a coach. right? You get a coach. You get a coach. And I love what Sarah says. I wrote 55,000 words a few years ago intending to publish, but I realized it was just for me, right? You're going to develop a relationship. Don't worry about whether you're a good writer or not. If you've got a good story, you can hire somebody to coach you to be a better writer or take a writing class, So now I'm going to get to your questions in a second, but don't you all want to meet the spirit of your business, then ask me some questions? I think you want to do that, right? Let's do that. Okay, so if we could turn the chat off just for now, I would really appreciate it. And just for now, because we all get very excited, right? Very, very excited. So I'm going to take you through a meditation, all right? And the meditations, I just want you to be very relaxed. Now, if you happen to have some meditation music you like to listen to, you can play it while you listen to me talk. Okay, so if you have something like, I love to listen to something, and so that's one of the reasons why today I chose not to play music that goes along with the meditation. I'm just going to let you pick something. Ask the spirit of your book to pick a meditation. I know stuff on YouTube is really good, or whatever. Just pick your favorite music, or not. And let's get ready. So I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath in, and exhale slowly. I want you to just allow yourself to relax. Let go any tension in your body. Just let it go. And I want you to consider this. You were delivered the gift of inspiration, the essence of which was gifted to you by the divine. All inspirations are divine. The great consciousness of spirit, God, goddess, whatever you call divine intelligence and divine will, chose you. It needed a person to steward the concept that is your book into being in the material world. You were the chosen one. It needed a person to steward the concept of you being an authorpreneur, maybe with a business attached to the book. You were chosen for that. I need you to sit with that right now and let it sink in. You don't have to worry so much. You are already chosen. Human beings are needed as a resource from spirit to steward formlessness into form. This is a sacred partnership. And just as with any inspired project, imagine yourself partnering with the spirit of your book, whether it has come into form yet or not. Now it's time to meet the creative intermediary between the physical and spiritual realms, the spirit of your book. Know that you've already answered the call. In front of you is a glowing, sparkling portal. Shimmering with light and life force energy. You are meant to step through it. And as you do, you enter an ancient library of timelessness, an incredible library of living books. Look around. What do you see? As you explore the library, an angel comes to greet you. They will take you down to the catacombs of this library. And along the walls are hundreds, thousands of scrolls and books. This place is filled with ancient scrolls from the past, scrolls from the present, books, ideas, scrolls of the future. For this is a place of living wisdom and inspiration. And you are safe here. Your beautiful angel takes you and leads you to a shelf just at eye level, where you see a glowing book and your name is on the spine. The book pulses with life. It has a heartbeat. This is your book, already alive and waiting for you. You reach out and place your hands on the book. You pick it up. Hold it against your chest. As you do, a swirling energy of pink, sparkling light and violet light surrounds you, and the spirit of your book begins to manifest in front of you. Take a moment to observe its presence. What form does it take? Is it a person? An animal? Something magical? Something else entirely? Let it show up for you. Perhaps it's just light and consciousness. Remember, it has chosen you to do something together. How does their presence make you feel? Now, the spirit of your book speaks to you, introducing itself as an emissary of the divine. The spirit has been with you since the moment you were first inspired. Everything that you have experienced in your life brought you to that moment. Hence why you were chosen. And the spirit says, I've been waiting for you. I am here to guide you. We do this together. You were chosen to bring this book into the world, and only you can birth me into the world of form. You were chosen for this. And hear them say, I am here to help you. Can you trust me as I lead you? Can you commit to trusting me and allow me to guide you? Now the spirit of your book presents you with a gift. What is it? Even if you don't really understand it, you realize this is a symbol of your partnership, a reminder that you're not alone in this creative process. You're never alone. The spirit of your book guides you to place the book on a pedestal within the chamber now. This book is not yet finished. And that's okay. It might even need to change a little. That's also okay. Place your hand on the book and make a covenant with the spirit of the book. And repeat after me. In this sacred covenant, I commit to doing my part as you do yours. Together, and so it is. Now take a deep breath in. Exhale slowly and watch the spirit of your book become energy, pure energy. And everything that you see changes as you say thank you, and you are back in the place where you started, here in this workshop with us. And when you're ready, slowly close your eyes. Open your eyes, I mean. Well, we know that part. And let's have a chat. We can open the chat now. What I'm going to choose, what I'm going to ask you to do is to write as much of this down as you can. You won't forget this. You won't forget this. I'm going to open up the chat on my end here. I close it so that I don't. The Akashic Records, that's right. Yeah, why am I sobbing? I know everybody cries. I'm sorry to make you cry. Everybody is sobbing, I know. I know. Who knew that that's what I was born to do, is make you all sob and cry. When I'm actually pretty funny. Yeah. A release, right? Don't you feel release? Yeah. You feel a peace that was eluding you regarding the book. Relieved. That's right. You want to feel relieved. Writing a book should feel joyful. Like I had the worst experience until I figured this out. Because I never had a bad experience creating an Oracle card deck, because I know it talks to me. I just translate it. It's always incredible. Right? But a book is I had to learn this. And I really hope you take this seriously. You know, it's a little weird, I know, for some of you, but I know that this is going to help you finish this book. And you never know, you might end up at Hay House, but I will tell you this, your book is meant to be self-published or published. It's going to find its perfect place and the perfect way, the perfect next step, if you keep asking the spirit of the book, what's the next step? So even though I've never had a New York Times bestseller, and even though I was just on Barnes and Nobles or Amazon or whatever, I don't even count that stuff anymore. When I've completed something, I know I have done my job. And whatever that thing is that I've created, whatever, be it a book, be it an Oracle card deck, is going to find people that I was chosen to bring it through, right? I was the conduit for this. And then I can let it go. And I never see anything as a failure. Like I didn't reach a goal or whatever. I manifested exactly what was right for me. And so will you. And so will you. So I think we have 5 more minutes. If anyone wants to ask me a question on there.
Hello. How are you? Hi, Kelly. Are you there?
I'm here. Yes.
Hello,
How many
everybody.
people?
Hope you guys like that.
Yeah. How many of you?
From the past one that we did in the past, but everyone loved it so much that we wanted to show it to you guys again. So
I'm curious how many of you found your book, the spirit of your book. How many of you got the gift and became the muse of your own book? Good. I'm glad to see that. It's so inspiring. You know, we give you so much information in these 4 days, and it can feel so overwhelming. So what I love about Colette is that she allows you some time and space to integrate it, and also to go back to your heart, because you're here for a reason. There's a reason why you want to write this book. And sometimes it can get a little caught up here because we have so much to teach you. So we love bringing Colette in to just ground it all, give you a chance to take a breather before we give you more information.
Exactly. And I love at the beginning how she said how excited she was to hold her book, her first book in her hand, and every book, to be honest, like every author there is. So like, you know, Louise did like 30 or 40 books. Every one she did, she loved that. You know, that was her favorite one. And the same with Wayne Dyer and all the other authors that we've had here at Hay House. Like, they loved them just as much as you. When Kelly got her book, she was so excited. She loved it.
I did.
And it's something that it's hard to explain until you do it. And that's another reason why we're so determined to help you get your book written over these 4 days. I mean, not done, but motivate you to get it done so that you're inspired. Not even motivate, inspire you to get it done. That's like right. Wayne Dyer, they used to call him the father of motivation, and he said, he goes, I'm already the father of too many people, but too many kids, because he said that, I really want to be inspiring to you, inspire you to do it rather than motivate you. So
I love it. It's beautiful.
So, well, thank you, all the general people. And tomorrow's all about getting your book written, so you can't miss that.
No.
So everyone, be sure to come tomorrow, all of you, and for all the VIPs, we're going to continue for the next hour over on the other side. So
yes, bye everybody in general. We'll see you.
Bye.
That was good, right? You guys, that was a good class. That's day 2. I still got to go back and listen to day 1. I've taken this boot camp probably like 2 other times. 2 other times in the past. And I like to take it because I always get the VIP, and when I do the VIP, I will have the opportunity to submit a book proposal, and so that I could get traditionally published or to try to win that contest. But I actually never did submit a book proposal because I just wasn't ready. So, I discovered when I took the boot camp that I just wasn't ready to submit a book proposal yet. But it gave me a whole lot of clarity, like it gave me, a lot of clarity. I was able to, kind of bring my vision together more, be more organized with my writing, more consistent. And, I'm writing from, like, a lot of this is emotionally charged. And so, I also have to think about my mental health and, just keep that in the forefront of things, and making sure I prioritize staying healthy, on all levels, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and all that stuff. So, all those things contributed to me not being ready to submit a book proposal. But I believe I'm ready this time. I've been working on my book proposal. It won't be for this book. It'll be for the 3rd book in my memoir series, which is cool too. I can submit for one book and then and it be part of a series, and it being part of a series may even help it to win. So because I've shown, I'll be able to show some proof that the other books in the series did well. So my first book, The Pastor's Daughter Provoked, became an international bestseller on launch day. So, that's gonna, it's gonna look good to, potential publishers, potential agents. So, I work hard to make sure that was done. And then my next book, which is the one I'm working on right now, we're gonna work to make sure that that's a success as well. So all of that is going to contribute to my credibility when I submit my book proposal for the 3rd book. And then I also have time to build up my following a little bit more, my social media presence, my mailing list, and all that good stuff. All the things that they were talking about in there, I've been working on myself. So I'll be able to build that even more when I submit the book proposal, and then focus more on trying to build my following. So that's where I am in the process, and so I'm excited about it. And I guess this, because that's over, this is probably a good, it's probably a good place to stop for this writing session. If you've been here the entire time, then you've done a 2-hour writing session with me, with Writing with Delores, the Pastor's Daughter. And I am, I'm so proud of y'all. I'm proud of that y'all are working on, putting something great out into the world. And I just want to send you some positive, creative energy. Know that I'm here, and I'm, encouraging you. We can hold each other accountable. Again, write in the chat what you're creating, what you're working on, and let me know, so, I can encourage you and, hold you accountable. So, that always helps, especially, when that someone really does have your back and they really want the best for you, which I do. So, yeah, I guess it's a good place to stop for now. And I will just see y'all probably tomorrow, with another writing session. I'm gonna get a couple few hours of sleep and then go to a meeting tomorrow. And then after that I should be ready to get back started on writing. Um yeah, and writing into the weekend. I'm really hoping to finish this by probably by Saturday. But I'm not gonna stress myself about it. I still have a little bit of time. I wanted to come out on my birthday, August 9th this year, which is what, like 64 days away or something. So I don't have a whole lot of time, but I'm still going to take my time, if that makes sense. Like I don't have it, but I'm gonna take it anyway. So yeah, you guys, I love y'all. And remember, you are important to me. I need you to survive. Bye bye for now.